This is a big one. 12 signs of mild autism in a child. My husband and I have 5 kids, and our 2 youngest are autistic. Ezra, our 7-year-old, has level 3 autism, which could be labeled as more severe. It mainly just means he needs more help. He's nonverbal and communicates through an iPad. And our youngest child, Simon, is 3 years old. He has level 1 autism, which we call mild autism in this video. But please understand, mild autism is not an official term. Simon's official diagnosis is level 1 autism with communication deficit and without intellectual deficit. If you're interested in finding out more about the different levels of autism, you can see that video here. We already made it. For someone to have the diagnosis of autism, they have to have issues in these 3 areas. The first one, communication. Second one, social. And third is repetitive or restricted behaviors or interests. Simon is very social and very talkative. He actually makes pretty good eye contact, especially on request. And he doesn't have most of the stereotypical classic signs of autism that usually people think about when they think of autism. So I'm just gonna put this out here right now for all the parents watching. It doesn't hurt to go get an assessment to find out for sure whether or not your child's autistic. If they aren't, then you know for sure that they aren't. And if they are, then you can help them get the support that they need. And you'll get support too, knowing how to best parent your child. All right, let's do this. 12 signs of mild autism in a child. And our last sign of mild autism is one you've never heard of.
I never heard of that.
The first one is delayed processing. For example, if you told your child to go take out the trash, and then they had to kind of think for a second about that before they turned to go take out the trash. Or if you told a joke, maybe with a lot of people around, and you notice your child didn't really laugh, didn't really respond like everyone else, but yet a few seconds or even a full minute later, they did laugh. That's delayed processing. Maybe they just had to think about it and process it for just a little bit longer than you might expect, and then be able to understand the situation. Please be patient. One of the worst things that parents can do is to yell or repeat themselves again and again as if they didn't hear, because that just heightens anxiety, and it's hard to learn when you have high anxiety. Believe me, I know.
Believe me, I know.
I can tell that Simon will deal with delayed processing, especially when there's a lot of sensory stuff going on. If we are in a crowded place, if something new is happening, if we have people over, if there's strong smells, he's really sensitive to those. And we'll get into that later. It's another sign, actually. Sneak peek. With delayed processing, all it takes is just a couple more seconds of my patience, and then he's able to accomplish the task that I need him to do or understand what it is that we're talking about. The second one is increased interests. This is a big one. For most autistic people, they have specific interests that they can hyper-focus on, that they will sometimes like to talk about. Now you might be thinking, well, of course kids have their favorite things. Everyone has favorite things. These are my favorite things when the dog bites. That's a song.
That's a song about the good life.
A neurotypical child will be able to talk about the things that they're interested in longer than things that they're bored about, right? The difference here is that an autistic child will be able to show a long period of focused interest on a certain topic and not other topics. For example, they might like cars or trains or space, planets, dinosaurs, and it might be difficult for that autistic person to talk about another separate topic that they're not that interested in. And they may even have a hard time listening to you talk about things that you like if they are not interested in them. That is a sign of autism, because there's that highly focused, intense interest on a certain topic. A neurotypical child will change their mind more often about things that they like and interests in topics that hold their attention, compared to an autistic child who will really hyper-focus for a long period of time. I just want to shout to the world, this isn't a bad thing. This is great. You know, my autistic kids can really hyper-focus on things that they love, and they can do those things really well. It's actually really impressive. The next sign of mild autism is stimming. I think that stimming is even something that neurotypical people do, whether they want to admit it or not. I'm not going to go into all the different types of stimming. If you want to see that video, it's right here, 12 examples of autism stimming. I see Simon stim usually when he has some kind of high emotion. Whether he's flapping his hands or twirling around in circles, he will get excited and has to kind of regulate that energy through the stim. Or he'll also stim, I've seen him stim when he gets really bored, like at church. You can see here, he's playing with my hair. He loves to play with my hair, especially when he needs to calm himself down. And that's a stim. Some stims that I've seen, especially with mild autism or level 1 autism, which used to be called Asperger's, would be going like this with their hair and twirling it, or maybe sucking on it, or picking at their lips. I do that all the time. I pick at my lips like crazy, or picking at their nails, or picking at like their skin. That type of thing is very common for people with level 1 autism. And I see it a lot with both my sons. And the next one kind of goes with the other one. It is not understanding social cues or body language. So for example, when someone's like this or like closed off, like touching their neck, it means maybe they're done with the conversation. Maybe they're uncomfortable with something that you said. And so teaching your child body language is actually really helpful too. So if you notice that your child doesn't get or doesn't quite understand that all the other people in the room just got sad, like there was a sober moment, and then your child is like still laughing, that's actually a sign of autism. Another sign of more mild level 1 autism is if you see your child stim publicly, and then because of the negative responses and reactions from other people, they stop or they mask their stimming. Wanting to and trying to mask by themselves is actually a sign of mild autism, because by masking, they're trying to hide their autistic trait. This is really an interesting and kind of controversial subject, because I always let my children stim. Just as long as they don't hurt other people or hurt themselves, I let them stim, because I want them to be able to learn. I want them to be able to regulate their own body, and I want them to be able to have fun and express themselves. And I think that has to do with stimming, right? But at the same time, if they're with a bunch of their peers that don't understand, they might get judged. So I want to teach my child what is expected. Not that I want to put that expectation on them, but just give them the knowledge and the skill life lesson that, hey, this is what's expected in this situation. And then let them decide if they want to mask or if they don't.
I don't feel like it anyway.
5 is doesn't notice hunger until you're really, really hungry. Now, with just what I've observed as a mother with 2 kids on the spectrum, I've noticed that this goes hand in hand with the hyper focus of certain interests or topics. They get so hyper focused that they forget to eat, that they don't feel the hunger until it's been hours, and then they get super hungry. When our son Simon is hungry, he's hungry. He runs to the kitchen and opens up the fridge and eats like the first thing that he sees. So we as parents want to be aware of that and help him snack in a healthy way. He's a pretty good eater as long as we have ketchup to dip it in. He dips so many things in ketchup.
We used to live in an RV, and we traveled to all the national parks in the US.
In the RV, we learned a lot. Please consider subscribing. The next sign is overly logical or being very literal in the way you speak and also in the way you process what other people have said. When I tell my son to put a plate on the table, he'll put a plate on the table. He won't recognize that I'm telling him to set the whole table. He'll just do what exactly I've asked him to do. And there's many examples of this that I won't go into, but if you remember Amelia Bedelia, those old books that I used to have as a little kid, Amelia Bedelia would be given instructions on something to do, and then she'd do it so literally that it was really funny. She'd do something completely different and out of the ordinary. And I think about Amelia Bedelia all the time with my autistic kids, because when I say something, I need to be careful that I say exactly what I want them to do, and because I know they're going to take it really literally, and so I need to take out any embellishments or any idioms. That's another one, idioms. Hard to understand idioms. Why do we even use idioms? I don't know, but it doesn't actually rain cats and dogs. Elephants don't walk in rooms, and let's try to keep the idioms to a minimum. And if you do use them with your children, please explain what they are so that they can learn and recognize. Because of course, an autistic child can learn what an idiom means, but it's important for the parent or caregiver to teach them and not just assume that they're gonna understand, because that's not really fair either. The next sign of mild autism is difficulty understanding other people's feelings. Now, please don't buy into the myth that autistic people are not empathetic and are not sympathetic, don't care about other people's feelings, because from my experience, they really care. They might care even more than a neurotypical person, and yet they just show it differently. I can tell that Simon cares about my feelings, but a lot of other people who don't know Simon personally might not recognize that he does pay attention and care about how other people feel. Sometimes it's kind of a delayed processing where he doesn't get it until a little later, and then that might be misconstrued as, oh, he's being rude, he's not responding in the expected way. Well, maybe he did respond, it was just in his own way. Is that really that bad? But if you notice that your child seems to not notice or understand other people's feelings, you can help them. As they're watching a video and there's facial expressions on characters, you can pause the video and go, hey, what do you think's happening? Who's mad? Who's sad? And teach the word that goes with the feeling and the facial expression. And that can really help that child, because we want to teach our kids skills so that they can choose to use them later. And if they don't have that skill, they've never been taught a skill, then it's going to be really, really hard for them later in life when they're an adult to teach themselves that skill. But if they have it, then they can choose whether or not they want to use it. So it's really giving your child more freedom by stepping up and teaching them these things. Like recognizing how to tell whether someone's sad, embarrassed, wants you to stop talking, things like that. They're just life skills that are good to know.
That's good to know.
Please remember that we aren't professionals, and if you want a diagnosis, you need to see a professional. But we do hope that this is helpful so you can see examples of real life situations that happen in our house. This one's an interesting one for kids. It's play differently with a toy. For example, if there's a ball, you would usually throw it or kick it, right? Well, what if someone just took a ball and like twirled it again and again and again? Or what if your child took a car and instead of going vroom vroom, they took it apart, looked at it through the light, and spun the wheel again and again and again? These are some simple examples that I've seen in my own home where kids just take toys and they don't use them maybe in the way that they're designed, but they use them in a different way. Maybe they care more about the mechanical parts than they do about the actual function that it was designed to do. And so I just want to put that out there because it is a visual one for parents. It's kind of an easy one to see. And that is a sign of autism. The next one is not understanding social boundaries. So what Simon will do is he'll go up to a complete stranger and go really, really close to them. He'll sometimes give them a hug. He'll sometimes want to sit on their lap or play with their hair. And I feel like that's really sweet and friendly and all, but it's also really dangerous because what if he goes a complete stranger that is not trustworthy or something? We are teaching him about stranger danger and he doesn't quite get it yet. So we keep him close. He's still 3, he's still learning, but that's just an example of not understanding social boundaries. I've seen Simon on the playground go up to a peer, a little kid his age, and push him down and then get really close to him, and I mean really close, and say, hi, 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 like a broken record. You should have seen the look on that mom's face. I felt so bad. I apologized that he pushed him down because that was sad. The kid was crying. She came out, she's like, well, that wasn't very nice. And I had to explain, I'm really sorry. I should have caught that. He means well, he's autistic. How about let's have them play together a little bit better. And she was really nice about it. That was fun.
Oh, that was fun. I love riding in cars.
That's another example of not understanding like that social boundary. Remember, these are examples from just one child, our son Simon. So put down in the comments what other signs of mild autism we've missed and tell us what you think about our list. The next one is sensitive to sensory input. Now this can go both ways. My son Ezra really seeks sensory input, so he likes it when I go like this. He likes it when I like squeeze him and go like this and tickle him really hard. He doesn't like soft hugs, he likes hard hugs. Like, he likes that input. Simon, on the other hand, he does like to be tickled, but Simon likes softer things as well. He doesn't crave that super hard input like Ezra does. But what Simon does do is he's really, really sensitive to smell. I did not know something smells or even had a smell until Simon came into the room and was like, that's smelly, and he just can't stand it. So whenever I cook in the kitchen, even if it's a good smell to me, it's too strong for Simon. So sometimes we'll kind of eat outside on the deck because this kitchen smells so strongly of, I don't know, garlic or butter. So if you see your child being really sensitive to certain smells or touch or tags on their clothing, I hate tags, I always take them off. Or if they're sensory seeking like our son Ezra, where they're, trying to hit their head again and again on something, or they're pounding something, they just like want that energy out and seek that sensory input, repetitively doing that, then that is a sign of autism. All right, here's our last sign, one that you've never heard of. It's idiosyncratic speech. This is how you spell it. I hope I'm saying it right. Idiosyncratic speech is speech that is typically used, but used in a not typical way. For example, if a child's trying to explain something, but they use different speech from their own personal experience that describes it to themselves but might not make sense to someone else. What if they want a certain movie, but they don't remember what it's called, they don't remember the names of the characters, so they just say a line in the movie, and then you're supposed to know what they want to watch. So that's an example of idiosyncratic speech. Another example of this is calling things by a name that they designed. Instead of asking for milk, they'll ask for what cereal swims in. Can I have bug? And you're thinking they want a bug, but they actually don't want a bug. They want to go jump on the trampoline because the last time we went and jumped on the trampoline, there was a bug on there. So that makes sense to them. This can be really difficult when they go to daycare or they go to school and people who don't know them really don't know what they're saying. Here's a video of 12 signs of autism under 2, and here's our autism playlist.